to order with adoption of the agenda, and I want to amend it to include the recommendation short-term rental draft policy. So if someone want to make that motion, Councillor Palmer, second by Councillor Brooks-Hill. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you for our councillors online. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of April 12th. Someone want to make that motion? Councillor Brooks-Hill, seconded by Councillor Charlotte. All in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. Any business arising from those council minutes of April 12th? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to item 8, which is the short-term rental draft policy. So at this point, we can discuss some of the things that we have started discussing in committee of the whole. And if you need any further direction, Ms. Floyd, we can just start discussing this, correct?
Put a motion on the table.
Yeah, okay. Someone want to put a motion on the table that the short-term rental draft policy be accepted? Is that how we want to do it, Ms. Floyd? Or Mr. Simon, some guidance. I think Ms. Floyd has run off on me.
Through your worship, staff's ideal situation would be to have the policy adopted with the adoption of the other 3 supporting bylaws, but should there be recommended changes to that draft policy, this would be the appropriate time to direct staff to pursue those changes.
Okay. You're smiling, Ms. Floyd.
My apologies.
No, that's fine. So we're going to put a motion on the table to adopt the short-term rental draft policy or the policy, and then can we make changes before we make that motion? Before we accept that motion, Councillor Palmer.
I'm going to suggest that we do it as it is.
Okay.
And if there's anything that comes up through the debate, we can make another motion to change it right after we've adopted it.
Okay. All right. That's a good point. So do you want to put that motion on? You're looking me straight in the eye.
Yeah, I'll make that motion to, it's just to adopt the short-term rental policy.
Draft policy, yep. All right. Seconded by Councillor Palmer. Any discussion on this short-term rental policy? Councillor Brooks-Hill.
In terms of changing the date of implementation, I was going to propose a compromise.
Okay.
Changing it to August 31st from July 31st. Just to
and then implementation a month later, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. So so do you want to put that motion on the table and see if you get traction?
Yeah.
There's motion on the table already, so we either amend it.
Yeah,
or
so I was making a motion to amend.
Amended? Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, so we have an amended motion on the table to change the date to August 31st.
For implementation,
and so September 30th or October 1st, is that it? We're August 31st and then we go a month later, is that how we have it written?
yeah.
Okay. Mr. Simon? No? Councillor Charlotte shaking her head.
Through your worship, I wonder if Councillor Charlotte was going to say the same thing. So the idea is that immediately after the education period, that's when the formal enforcement period would commence. So if it's council's desire to change the item in clause 7 to August 31st, 2022, then the item in clause 8 should be changed to September 1st, 2022.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarity. Yeah, I'm thinking differently, but yeah, appreciate that. And that's seems to be comfortable around the table. Thank you for that. Okay, any comments on that? You're comfortable with that? Seeing none, Councillor Palmer, you have some paper in your hand. Do you have any other amendments or concerns that you have?
No, that's good.
Okay. No further comments on the date change, so I'll call the question on the amended motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Note Councillor Elliott is opposed. Balance of council are in favor.
Councillor Charlotte was opposed.
Councillor Charlotte, were you opposed? No, you're in favor.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
okay, yeah,
Sorry.
I thought you were in favor. All right, so now we're going to go back to the original motion, adopting the short-term rental policy. So someone, we've already got that motion on the table. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Note that Councillor Elliott is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. This policy has now been adopted. All right, we're going to move on to item 9A, short-term rental business license fees, charges, the MTI bylaws. So someone want to put item number 1 on the table, Councillor Pursuant?
The business licensing and regulation amendment bylaw number 2305 be read a third time.
Someone want to second that for me? Councillor Palmer. Discussion on that motion. Any, Councillor Pursuant?
I just have a question. So can we not adopt that at this meeting? We can only read it a third time? That's,
I think we have to, because it's not zoning, we have to be 24 hours.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll get that straight eventually.
Okay, so any comments on that motion? Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Note Councillor Elliott is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. That motion has passed. Moving on to item number 2. Someone want to put that on the table? Councillor Brooksville.
The municipal ticket information amendment bylaw number 2306 be read a third time.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Charlotte. Discussion on this motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Note the motion is carried. Moving on to item 3. Someone want to put that on the table for us, please. Councillor Brosseau.
The fees and charges amendment bylaw number 2307 be read a third time.
So seconder for that motion. Councillor Charlotte. Discussion on this motion. Councillor Brooksville.
I'm still a little concerned that the business license fee is too low. I understand that we don't know how much the enforcement measures are going to cost exactly, and that we can't go beyond cost recovery. However, I don't, if we were going to make it $2,000, I think there would be some large complaints about that. But if we were to increase it, I don't know, to like $600 or $700, I don't think anyone's going to be going to the ministry saying that we're being overly onerous.
Okay, so that's for the short-term rental part?
Yeah, that's the only
For those
part.
fees?
It's just, it changes vacation rentals to short-term rental, and the current proposed fee is $500 plus $50 per each licensed bedroom.
Okay, Councillor Ron.
I was just gonna say, there's now fewer of them than if we had changed, like, passed a bylaw that was a bit less restrictive, and so, I think because of that, there'll be a premium for the places that do have short-term rental designation or whatever and have that license, so I would be in favor of bringing that up to 1,000, and then increasing the bed and breakfast to 500.
So did you say 1,000 or 2,000?
1,000.
1,000.
Any comments from council on that?
So I'll just put a motion on the table to amend the motion to adopt this, because this is the time to do it. Oh, Cindy, I'm gonna need help.
Okay, Ms. Floyd.
So through the mayor, if we want to make changes to the fees here from that 500 to 1,000, I'm suggesting we do it on two things. To 1,000, how do we do that? We have a motion on the table for third reading right now. We'd have to pull that to make a change. It should have made this change before we went third reading, right?
That's right. We should probably withdraw the original motion and then do a motion as amended with those 2 amendments.
Okay, so I
So
made the motion.
are we talking now about the fees and charges on this is just for vacation rentals or short-term rentals is what I'm looking at here in Maya? Are we talking about bed and breakfast as well?
We're actually just talking procedure.
Okay. That's fine.
So did I make the motion?
I think I made the motion.
Yeah, Councillor Brooks Hill and Councillor Charlotte seconded.
So withdraw your motion.
Okay, Councillor Charlotte, you have your hand up.
I do, thank you, Worship. I'm happy to withdraw the motion for now because I would also like to talk about some amendments.
Okay.
So that makes more sense.
Councillor Bergeau, you want to withdraw your motion? Okay. So now we want to talk about, we've got that procedure done. We want to talk about short-term rental fees and charges. Is that correct?
Yeah, Councillor Charlotte.
Councillor Charlotte, go ahead, please.
So for the fees and charges, when I was looking at some of the other communities and how they set these fees, one of the items I saw was a different fee for short-term rentals, whether it was a principal residence or a non-principal residence, which to me gives a little bit of flexibility to charge those fees a little bit differently depending on the scenario. So if it's a homeowner renting out part of their home and they are the principal resident, that they get a lower business fee than someone who is not present in the home. I'm curious as to whether staff had seen something like that or had considered it.
Mr. Simon.
Through your worship to Councillor Charlotte, that is something that we have come across. I think the challenge that we have with the current framework for the city's regulations, which I would say has been cleaned up tremendously through this process. But I would note that our framework isn't as clean as we would like it to be. And, we're going down the right road, but there is still more to do. And I just want to make sure that staff throughout City Hall are able to administer the regulation appropriately and that we're capturing it accordingly. So if it was an item that council were to consider based on the current framework off the top of my head, I would recommend something along the lines of short-term rental business, short-term rental fee, and then another one that would be short-term rental with parentheses with permanent resident on-site operator, something along those lines, so that we know it would be applicable to the areas where there is that requirement for a permanent resident on-site operator to live either in a suite or in the principal dwelling unit while the other gets rented out. But I would note for council, we also want to be careful. The more we start adding into it, then the more challenging it gets to administer and to understand from the community's perspective too.
Understood. It makes good sense. It would be something I'd be interested in pursuing in the long term as this evolves, but I think you're right. That makes sense. So we start with something simple and clean to adopt and get into this, and then over time start fine tuning it to better serve the community's needs. With that in mind, I would prefer to keep the business fee, the license fees as they stand, and to leave large increases or further increases based on the enforcement, the actual costs as we find out what those are, but then also looking at what changes to our business licensing framework and the short-term rental framework can we make to make that more simple, to make it more accessible, a way that we can create a bit more accessibility and balance in those fees.
Councillor Palmer.
Sorry, I'm mostly thinking.
That's okay. Mostly thinking as well.
So interesting point. So what I'm torn with is I'm tending to agree with Councillor Rind and Councillor Brooks Hill that this should be higher. At the same time, we're now starting to construct some stuff a little bit ad hoc. And that's why, so like one of the questions I have, and I don't know if staff would know the answer right away, but what's the business license fee for secondary suites? And because what we're recognizing that there's possibly some more enforcement issues around vacation rentals compared to secondary suites, quite a bit more issues around that. So that should be substantially more than a secondary suite. And in secondary suites, if there is a fee right now for it, it should be quite low. So those are just some of the thoughts, but now we're starting to try and be bylaw.
Trying to do things that are,
Yeah.
so Mr. Simon or Ms. Floyd, you have your hand up?
The secondary suite fee is $50 annually.
Okay. So if I may, then I tend to agree with Councillor Gillette, just based on the balance and trying to add some complexity. We can come back and address this at any time.
Right.
So we've come a long way, and it's maybe feeling a little bit low to us, but let's not make a mistake on some procedural thing and get this thing done. Is kind of where I'm inclined to go.
Okay, Councilman.
I'm just trying to understand, so you're worried that the procedural thing will slow it down if we make this change?
No.
Oh,
So if I may, so
like if we just swap the fee, what?
it's when we start constructing new lines, we can make some unintended consequences. If it's just the $500,
Yeah.
we could do the $1,000. I mean, you
Gotcha.
can put a resolution on the table to amend it to $1,000. We can have that debate
Yeah, okay,
and see where that goes.
gotcha. I would like to do that.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
So Councilor Ryan is putting the motion on. Ms. Floyd, you have your hand up. Sorry, before we go forward.
No, that's fine. I just want to question as to whether or not you're going to do the base fee, and then are you still planning on leaving the bedroom fee at $50 per room?
Let's start there. Yeah, just the base fee.
Yeah,
Okay.
so $1,000 for, and then $50 a bedroom. So that was motion was put on by Councilor Ryan, seconded by Councilor Palmer. Any discussion on this motion on the table? Councilor Brooks-Howell.
I was kind of gonna suggest that I was more inclined to go the other way, to increase the per bedroom rate rather than the base fee.
Interesting.
Also open to that. But I would suggest maybe a little like bit of both, right? Like a 750 or whatever, and then $100 per each room or.
So it's to Councillor Brooks Hill. So it's a valid point, because if you just have one unit compared to somebody that has three, like one bedroom,
Yeah.
compared to the person that has three, it feels a little unfairish kind of thing.
That's my feeling as well, but
So if we defeat this, this is complex.
We could just amend it.
We can amend this fee and then change the bedroom one as well if you wanted to.
Yeah, because I'm inclined to say, based on that, I'm inclined to say, well, like if it was, say, $500,
And then $250 a room.
yeah, $250 a room, then that's feeling a lot more fairish kind of thing.
I think my only concern with that is there might be some weirdness with the people, like, just from a staff perspective, it's like, oh yeah, no, we're not renting that room out, that's the guest room that we saved for friends or whatever, and then it's like, then you have to put it on that person to go, and versus it just being like, yeah, it's 4 bedrooms, like, tack on the other $50 or extra $200,
A valid point, yeah, we're trying to think of the devious mind, but they probably have an illegal rental that they're doing anyway. And so on the enforcement, I guess to Mr. Simon on that sort of sneaky little thing, post-compliance is going to show up. They've got two rooms, right? And then you're going to go after them.
Through your worship, yes, that is correct. And if there's ever an issue with how much money they're being charged, because again, this is an annual charge for someone, then we would update accordingly.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
So
So do you guys want to amend that motion?
to leave it at 500 and then 250 per room.
Sure.
All right, so they're going to amend the motion to $500 for the fee for short-term rental and $250 per bedroom.
So that's just an amendment to the motion we already made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You okay with that, Ms. Floyd?
Yeah.
All right, so now any more debate on this motion?
On the amending motion.
On the amending motion, thank you for that, Council. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the amending motion? Opposed? Note that this motion, opposed, Ms. Charlotte, you're opposed? Thank you. All right, Councilor Charlotte's opposed, balance of council is in favor. Now, the motion on the table to accept the fees and charges bylaw to be read a third time.
No, we're still at the 250. We're not there yet.
Okay, where are we at?
So now we're at the original motion of changing the bylaw to 250.
I thought we just did that.
How we just did that. We did both at the same time, correct?
Yes, Your Worship. The motion that I had on the table was that the fees and charges bylaw 2307 be read a third time as amended to reflect a base fee of $500 plus a $250 per licensed bedroom fee for short-term rentals.
Councillor Palmer.
That's good. Thanks.
Okay, so we voted on it, it's done, correct?
Yeah.
I don't
That's
have to vote on anything else. That one is done. All right.
When do we talk about bed and breakfasts?
So do we talk about bed and breakfast or did we already skip over that?
It's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
I would suggest we should finish the third reading and we could add
Okay.
that to the agenda possibly.
I think we did finish the third reading.
So a little clarification, Ms. Floyd, I thought we had done the third reading and everything all in one time.
No,
No,
third
reading.
reading was withdrawn. You made the amending motion to those fees, and so we
Okay.
still need a motion to give third reading as amended.
Okay.
Do the motion for third reading as amended.
Okay, so Councillor Palmer, seconded by Councillor Charlotte. Councillor Charlotte, no? She's got a question.
No, I was just saying if we haven't brought it forward for third reading yet, then we could talk about, or I guess you were saying it wasn't on the agenda, so we're not going to talk
it's
about
not
the
on the agenda.
bylaws because of that.
It was just vacation or short-term rentals on this motion here. It didn't have bed and breakfast tied to that.
So that, Mayor, so
Right.
it's not seconded yet. I'd just like to make a comment on
Yeah.
the motion that I've had. It's not seconded yet, because if there's any more discussions on any other amendments to the bylaw, we should not do third reading or else we're gonna have to rescind it again. So I can,
So let's talk about,
I'll withdraw my motion.
okay.
Ms. Floyd, that's okay?
Yes.
So Ms. Floyd, talking about, so Councillor Ryan was asking about bed and breakfast. So that's not on our agenda right now, correct?
No, that's correct. It's also not on the amending bylaw, period.
Okay,
So this isn't really the avenue to make this change. It would be at a later
Okay.
date.
okay. So we
Understood.
can do that in another council meeting, correct? All right. So now, Councillor Palmer.
So through the corporate officer and any comments from council, we're ready for third reading, correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right, everybody okay with that around the table? Someone want to make that motion?
I can make the motion.
All right. Then seconded by Councillor Brooks Hill. All right, any further discussion on the third reading? Councillor Elliott. You're muted.
Yeah, I just want to make a bit of a comment. My vote against the first two items we talked about was a reflection of my non-support of the bylaw itself, the short-term rental bylaw itself.
Great, okay.
The ticketing and the fee structure are things that we should have addressed previously and would have simplified a lot of the debate on short-term rentals. And a lot of the problems have ensued from a lack of enforcement and a lack of responsible or reflective fees. So now we're at that stage, and I'm all for enforcement and the fees that are proposed. So just want to make that clear.
All right, thank you, Councillor, appreciate that. All right, any further discussion on the motion on the table? So we are reading a third time the fees and charges amendment bylaw 2307. As amended. All right.
Can I comment quickly that
Yes.
the reason I'm supportive of this is because I obviously wasn't in support before, but now that it's too late to defeat him, just. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, well, appreciate your comments. All right, I'll now call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Elliott,
Sorry,
you opposed?
So I'm opposed to the third reading. I'm opposed to the bylaw, but yeah, that's what I'm.
Okay, you're opposed to the third reading. All right, thank you. So this motion is passed. Thank you. No, Councillor Elliott's opposed. All right, so I'm going to ask for someone to make a motion to go in camera pursuant to section 90.1K of the community charter. Someone want to make that motion? Councillor Brooks Hill, seconded by Councillor Palmer. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Let's go in camera.